I know you think you want a life of freedom and no responsibility and to do nothing all day, and that this would be the perfect life for you. But I have some news for you. What you most deeply crave is not doing nothing, it's not being lazy, it's not having a schedule that is completely empty. What you actually most deeply crave is responsibility. And I know this information might be shocking to you, and it might be something that you're resisting, because honestly, the thought of responsibility when you've had a difficult relationship with responsibility seems so foreign. It doesn't seem like something that you could make work, and it just doesn't seem like you, to be honest. I think the first thing I really want to say here is that your fear of responsibility and your general laziness, if we're going to be honest, let's call a spade, it's laziness. It has nothing to do with laziness. It has nothing to do with a fear of responsibility. It has nothing to do with you even thinking you want freedom so bad. It's actually an issue of self-worth. When you think that you are this weak little person and that if you extend any energy or take on any new commitment, that it will deplete you. It will be the last straw, the thing that makes you fall apart. So you can't possibly take on more. You can't possibly give more of yourself because it will take you down. That is tied to a self-image that you are weak, that you don't have that much to give, that you don't have much to contribute, and that your contribution doesn't mean that much. Because honestly, if you really thought that your contribution could have a huge impact in people's lives, you would give it. But if you're withholding it, you really just don't think you're very important. And that is just one way to view yourself. And honestly, it's not true that you're this weak, powerless little person that can't take on more responsibility, because it'll just push you over the edge. The other way to view yourself, and the way that people who take on a lot of responsibility view themselves, is that they have so much to give. That taking on responsibility and taking on commitments, it doesn't deplete them, it energizes them. Because the truth is, what you give, you have more of. When you give, you do not deplete when you're doing it with the energy of expanding, of giving more of yourself, and of doing more. And this kind of goes back to the idea that like increases like. So when you give energy, you actually get it back. When you give of yourself, you get this experience of yourself that you wouldn't otherwise get. So I think one of the ways we cheat ourselves the most is trying to cut out responsibility and try to cut out commitments from our life. And here's the funny thing, everyone wants to create a new self-image of them being powerful, infinitely creative, infinitely strong, with so much to give, so much to contribute. And people are out here saying affirmations about things. Sure, maybe that's one way to do it, but the other way to do this, to engrave this new self-image in you, is to give of yourself. Because the truth is, when you have so much, you do want to give. That's your instinct. When you feel like you have nothing and you have nothing to give, you withhold and you retract, and your energy becomes smaller as a result. The truth is, you really don't know what you have until you give it. You don't know how much talent you have until you start giving it. You don't know the strength you have until you start giving it. You don't know what you're able to take on and what you're able to do until you start doing it. So the only way to truly experience yourself is to give of yourself. I just want to say that I've had so much experience with this. This is one of the biggest struggles that I've had in my life. This is one of the biggest realizations that I've really been forced to take on, which is why I want to talk to you about it today, because this is one of the biggest lessons that I've ever had to learn in my life. It's been one of the most rewarding lessons I've ever had to learn in my life. And oh my gosh, it's been one of the biggest ways that I've resisted my life, maybe out of anything that I've ever done. The ways that I avoided responsibility and commitment was insane. I thought it was the last thing I wanted. I thought that I wanted to marry rich and never work. I thought that I wanted to travel the world and do nothing. These were all things that I wanted. And when I got near any of these things, it became so obvious that it's not what I want. And the reason I say this is because I know there's a part of you that thinks that you want this, but you don't. And a part of you knows that you don't want this. And a part of you knows that you want more. And I'm not talking responsibility as in responsibility with things that you don't even want. Sure, sometimes you do have responsibilities that you don't necessarily, maybe they're not ideal. Yes, take those on too. Become responsible for your life. Commit to the things that you need to commit to go farther. But when I'm talking about true responsibility that expands you and it brings you joy and it brings you into an experience of yourself. If you want to experience yourself, take on responsibility with what you want to do in your life, with your dreams, with your passions, with what lights you up. That is the kind of responsibility that you want to take on. And so this is one of my biggest tips. If you have a poor view of your self-image, yes, you can visualize, that's amazing. Yes, you can do affirmations, that's great, but you can also start giving more of yourself and you can start taking on more responsibility, because what you are really communicating to yourself when you do that is that you have more than enough to give. And when you start giving and when you start taking on things, you start to realize, oh my gosh, I'm actually handling this. This is something I actually have down. This is not something that's draining me. It's actually something that I'm remaining afloat. And not only am I remaining afloat, I'm actually thriving, or I'm doing better, or I'm, building upon something. Again, you don't know what you have until you start to give it. I think this is especially true for athletes or for anyone who works out. You don't know how far you can push yourself and what you're capable of until you push yourself, that one weight more or that one workout more, whatever you're doing. You see that progress, but you don't really see that progress until you start seeing what your limit is. And again, the best thing that you could ever take on responsibility for is the thing that brings you closer to what you've always wanted to do, your dreams, your passions, and your love. And of course, this is an ongoing thing. I still avoid responsibility to this day, okay? There are ways that it sneaks up on me. There's ways that it's gonna sneak up on you. That's fine. It's not a big deal. What's important is that every time you fall off, you get back up and you get back up quickly. That's all that matters. Just kind of jump back on the horse. It's not a big deal. Laugh it off, get back to it. And the thing about this life lesson is that when you hear it, you can't unhear it. So fortunately and unfortunately, you've heard it now. You most deeply want responsibility. I know it's confusing. I know it's what you've been running from your whole life, but it also might be why you are miserable. It might be why you're depressed. It might be why you're anxious. I didn't want to believe this for the longest time, but it did hold true in my life. And that is why I want to give this lesson over to you so that maybe it'll help you out and you won't get yourself into all the mess that I got myself into while trying to figure out my life. Anyway, that's it for me today. I'm wishing you the very best week and I will talk to you very soon.